Failure is a tutor, not a tormentor. You know, life has a funny way of delivering lessons. And oftentimes, they don't come wrapped in celebration or applause. They come wrapped in disappointment, missed opportunities, broken expectations. But let me tell you something. Those moments, those so-called failures, they are not meant to punish you. They are meant to instruct you. They are not there to shut the door, but to point you toward the one you were meant to open. See, when you change the way you look at failure, failure begins to change the way it looks in your life. Now, I learned early on in my own journey that failure doesn't show up to destroy your confidence. It shows up to challenge it, to test the structure. It asks you, how bad do you want it? How willing are you to grow? Can you take a hit and get back up with more wisdom than before? That's the real value. You see, a tormentor wants to see you suffer. A tutor wants to see you succeed, but they'll make you work for it. And that's what failure is. It's the hardest teacher with the greatest rewards. Most people run from failure because they misunderstand its role. They think it's an ending, when in fact it's just part of the beginning. Let's be honest, when things go wrong, it hurts. But that's because it matters to you. And when it matters, you're more likely to remember the lesson. That's why failure makes the message stick. Success is a poor teacher because it keeps you comfortable. But failure makes you pay attention. It forces you to ask questions. What went wrong? What could I have done differently? What do I need to fix within myself before I try again? And in asking those questions, you begin the process of transformation. You don't grow during the applause. You grow during the silence that follows a defeat. That's when the real learning begins. And it's in those quiet moments, when you're alone with your thoughts, that you decide who you're going to become. Not everyone makes that decision consciously. Some people let failure define them. Others let it refine them. And that choice, refine or define, is the pivot point that separates regret from growth. Think about a sculptor working with a block of marble. Every strike of the hammer chips away at what is unnecessary to reveal what is essential. That's failure. It's not trying to hurt you, it's trying to shape you. But the shaping process, it's uncomfortable. It takes time. It takes patience. It takes the humility to admit you don't have it all figured out yet, and the courage to keep showing up anyway. One of the best things you can do after failing is to pause, not quit. Reflect. Sit down with a notebook and write down what happened. Not with blame, not with shame, but with curiosity. Treat your experience like data. The most successful people I've ever met weren't the ones who avoided failure. They were the ones who studied it. They were willing to look back, take notes, and adjust the next time around. That's how they got ahead. Failure didn't stop them. It schooled them. It's not a matter of if you'll fail, it's when. Everyone fails. The difference is in how you respond. When you embrace failure as a tutor, you extract its value. You stop seeing it as something to be ashamed of and start using it as a stepping stone. The people at the top didn't skip failure. They stood on it. It became the platform they used to rise. And guess what? Every time they fell again, they used the next failure to rise even higher. So the next time life doesn't go the way you planned, take a deep breath and remind yourself, this is not the end. It's not even a setback. It's a setup for your next level of growth. The lessons are there. The tools are hidden inside the mess. And if you're willing to dig through the discomfort, you'll find gold. Because failure isn't there to torment you. It's there to train you, to teach you, to shape you into someone capable of far more than you imagined. And that's the truth about growth. It's not always pretty. It's not always comfortable. But it is always worth it if you're willing to learn. The seed of growth lies in setback. It may not feel like it in the moment, but every disappointment carries within it a hidden gift, an opportunity for personal development, for mental strengthening, and for future success. Setbacks are not meant to break you. They're meant to wake you up. They reveal areas you've ignored, disciplines you've let slide, and habits that aren't serving you. More than anything, they push you to ask a vital question. What can I learn from this? Growth rarely comes from smooth sailing. Think about it. Nobody develops patience when everything goes their way. Nobody builds resilience without being tested. Nobody improves their thinking by always being right. It's when things go wrong that the mind is stretched, the heart is tested, and the character is forged. That moment when your plans fall apart, or your results disappoint you, that's when the seed of growth is planted. Whether or not it grows depends on your response. You see, a setback is neutral. It's just an event. It's not inherently good or bad. The meaning you attach to it determines its power. Some people see a setback and immediately decide that they're not cut out for the path they've chosen. Others experience the same setback and say, okay, that didn't work. What can I do better? That second response is where growth begins. It's where potential is unlocked. The difference isn't in intelligence or luck. It's in perspective. Just like a seed has to go underground before it can rise up and break through the surface, you too will experience moments where everything feels buried. The pressure is on. The progress is invisible. The results aren't showing. But if you stay grounded in discipline and belief, something is happening underneath the surface. Roots are forming. Lessons are settling into place. And soon enough, if you keep nurturing your effort, something will break through. That's growth. And it wouldn't have happened without the setback. Some of the greatest innovations, breakthroughs, and personal transformations were born in moments of failure or loss. People looked at what went wrong, took full responsibility, and decided to grow from it. You don't need to get it perfect. You just need to get it going. And every misstep along the way is not wasted. It's fertilizer for the future. The trick is to stay in motion and stay in the mindset of learning. When you treat your life like a learning lab, setbacks stop being threats and start becoming tools. Let's be honest though. Nobody enjoys a setback. They're frustrating. They hurt. They can make you question yourself. But that's part of the refinement process. If growth was easy, everyone would be doing it. But most people avoid the discomfort. They avoid taking a good, honest look at their mistakes. They'd rather move on quickly or blame someone else. But those who embrace the pain, those who take time to understand it, they unlock power. Because when you get the lesson, you no longer have to repeat the mistake. You might not control what happens to you, but you always control what you do next. That's the key. That's where maturity shows up. It's in the decision to grow instead of give up, to build instead of break down. That mindset separates those who use setbacks as stepping stones from those who use them as excuses. And let me tell you something. If you keep choosing growth, even when it's inconvenient, eventually those setbacks become stories of triumph. Success isn't a straight line. It's full of pivots, corrections, and detours. The people who make it don't have fewer setbacks. They just extract more value from them. They ask better questions. They build mental toughness. They adjust their plan without abandoning their purpose. That's what it means to grow through a setback. You stop seeing it as a wall and start seeing it as a turn in the road. And you stay focused on where you're going, even if you have to take a different route to get there. In the end, setbacks aren't the enemy. They're part of the process. And the more you understand that, the more power you have. Every struggle you face has something to teach you, if you're willing to learn. Every failed attempt carries insight that will make the next attempt smarter. But you have to stay in the game. You have to keep your mind open, because that's how growth works. It doesn't come by avoiding setbacks. It comes by using them. And once you understand that, you'll never look at failure the same way again. Pain is the price tag of progress. There's no way around it. If you want to grow, you're going to have to go through some discomfort. The path to becoming more, achieving more, and contributing more is paved with challenges that test your character, your commitment, and your capacity to endure. And while it might not be pleasant, it's absolutely necessary. You don't develop strength in ease. You develop it in resistance. You don't build endurance sitting still. You build it by pressing forward when everything in you wants to quit. Growth and pain are intertwined. Every step forward demands something from you. It demands you leave something behind. A belief, a habit, a way of thinking that's no longer serving you. And letting go isn't always easy. It's uncomfortable. But that discomfort is a sign that something is shifting. Something is breaking open. And that opening is where your next level begins. People often want the outcome, the success, the recognition, but they resist the pain that comes with earning it. And that resistance is what holds them back. There's a certain kind of pain that's productive. It's the kind you feel when you're stretching beyond what's familiar. It's the kind of pain that comes from waking up earlier than you want to, studying longer than you feel like, having tough conversations you'd rather avoid, and choosing discipline over distraction. It's the pain of turning off the television to work on your goals, the pain of staying focused while others are playing. That pain isn't punishment, it's progress. And the ones who grow are the ones who lean into it. You can't expect to change without cost. Every breakthrough demands a trade-off. You trade comfort for capacity. You trade ease for excellence. You trade now for later. And in the short term, that doesn't always feel good. But if you can endure the momentary discomfort, you unlock long-term rewards. That's how personal development works. The process transforms you. But transformation always carries growing pains. Think about it. A seed must break before it becomes a plant. Muscles must tear before they grow stronger. The old version of you has to die for the new one to rise. Pain has a purpose. It gets your attention. It forces you to slow down and examine what needs to change. Sometimes we don't make adjustments until the pain forces us to. You might not fix your finances until you feel the pain of debt. You might not take care of your health until you feel the pain of neglect. You might not protect your time until you feel the pain of being overwhelmed. Pain speaks a language that comfort never could. It's a wake-up call. It's a signal that growth is not only possible, but necessary. You'll notice that the most successful people aren't necessarily the smartest or the most talented. They're the ones who've built a healthy relationship with pain. They've learned how to endure temporary setbacks for permanent strength. They don't shy away from the process. They respect it because they know the truth. Comfort is where dreams go to die. It's not that comfort is bad. It's just that staying there too long costs you your potential. Growth lives outside your comfort zone, and the rent is paid in pain. Now, I'm not talking about destructive pain, the kind that comes from toxic environments or self-sabotage. I'm talking about the constructive pain that shows up when you're doing something meaningful, something worthwhile. It's the burn in the gym, the butterflies before the speech, the pressure of deadlines when you're building your future. That kind of pain is productive. It's the body and mind adapting to a new level. And once you understand that, you stop fearing it. You start embracing it. So when the path gets tough, when you feel that internal resistance, don't panic. That's not a sign that you're failing. It's a sign that you're progressing. You're leaving the shallow end and stepping into deeper waters. And yes, it's harder to swim there, but it's also where the growth happens. It's where your real strength is developed. Anyone can coast in the shallow end, but the one who's willing to endure the challenge, who's willing to push through the burn, that's the one who comes out stronger, wiser, and better equipped. At the end of the day, pain is not your enemy. It's your evidence. It proves that you're in motion, that you're challenging limits, that you're doing something that matters. You may not enjoy it in the moment, but you'll be grateful for it later, because the pain you feel today is the strength you carry tomorrow. And if you can remember that, if you can keep that truth in front of you, you'll be willing to pay the price, because now you know it's not suffering, it's an investment. It's the price tag of progress. Reflection turns experience into insight. Just going through something isn't enough to guarantee that you've grown from it. You can fail, struggle, hustle, and survive all kinds of hardships. But if you don't take time to pause and think deeply about what happened, why it happened, and what you can do differently, you miss the real value of the experience. Experience alone doesn't teach. Evaluated experience does. That's where transformation happens. Not in the event itself, but in the processing of it afterward. You can't just keep moving forward without looking back. If you're too busy to reflect, you're too busy to grow. You might make the same mistakes again and again, wondering why you're not making progress. That's because unexamined experiences simply repeat themselves. It's like running on a treadmill. Lots of motion, very little movement. But when you stop and ask the right questions, when you give yourself the gift of stillness, an honest evaluation, suddenly things become clear. You understand not just what happened, but what it meant. And from that meaning you find direction. We live in a fast world. Everyone's rushing on to the next project, the next opportunity, the next solution. But speed doesn't always equal success. Sometimes the best thing you can do is slow down and think. Get out a notebook, sit with your thoughts, look at what worked, look at what didn't. Ask yourself, what did I expect? What actually happened? Why? What part did I play in this? What would I do differently next time? These aren't just journaling exercises, they're growth accelerators. Every answer is a piece of the puzzle, and the more you reflect, the clearer the big picture becomes. Without reflection, you risk becoming reactive. You make emotional decisions. You act out of frustration or fear instead of wisdom. But when you reflect, you respond with clarity. You move with purpose. You don't just stumble forward. You step forward with intention. And that one shift, moving from reaction to reflection, can change the course of your life. It helps you make better decisions, avoid repeat mistakes, and stay aligned with your values. Reflection also builds self-awareness, and self-awareness is the foundation of personal growth. It's how you discover your blind spots. You begin to see the patterns in your thinking, the stories you tell yourself, and the habits that either support or sabotage your progress. And once you see them, you can change them, but you can't change what you're unwilling to see. And that's why reflection is not optional, it's essential. Think about some of the most effective leaders, entrepreneurs or creators you know. They all have one thing in common. They regularly take time to review their journey. They extract lessons from every win and every loss. They don't just chase goals. They learn from the process of chasing them. They study themselves like students. That's what makes them wise. That's what keeps them evolving. Because to stay on top of your game, you have to stay in touch with yourself. You can't just do, you have to understand. Reflection also protects your confidence. When things go wrong, it's easy to beat yourself up, but reflection lets you separate your worth from your mistakes. You stop saying, I failed, and start saying, that strategy failed, that timing was off, that approach didn't work. You get specific, you learn, and in that learning, your confidence doesn't shrink, it grows. Because now you're not guessing anymore, you're adjusting, you're refining, you're getting better, one insight at a time. But don't just reflect on the failures, reflect on the wins too. Ask yourself, why did that go well? What decisions led to that outcome? How can I repeat that success? Like failure, holds clues, and if you're wise enough to look for them, you'll find them. Reflection keeps you grounded. It keeps you grateful. It reminds you that progress is happening, even when it's not obvious in the moment. And here's the beauty of it all. The more you reflect, the more equipped you become. Every experience becomes a building block. Nothing is wasted. No pain, no mistake, no setback is meaningless if you're willing to extract the lesson. That's what turns life from something that happens to you into something that happens for you. You become a student of your own journey, and that's where real wisdom begins. Not in having all the answers, but in asking the right questions and being honest enough to learn from them. So take the time, schedule it if you have to, sit down, think it through, write it out, talk it out. But don't rush past your experiences, reflect on them, because only then do they become more than memories. They become insight, and insight, when applied, becomes growth. Adaptability is the bridge between failure and success. It's the mindset and skill that allows you to pivot when plans fall apart, when obstacles arise, and when circumstances change. Life rarely unfolds exactly how we imagined it. Even the best strategies, the most detailed plans, and the strongest efforts sometimes fall short. Not because we're not capable, but because conditions shift, markets shift, people change. The unexpected arrives. And in those moments, the people who succeed aren't the ones who try to force their original plan. They're the ones who know how to adapt without losing sight of the goal. See, adaptability is not about giving up your vision. It's about being flexible with your method. It's about recognizing that there's more than one way to get where you're going. Too many people get stuck because they become married to a specific path. When that path is blocked, they freeze. They assume the dream is over, but it's not the dream that failed. It's the route that needs change. Adaptable people don't take detours personally. They take them strategically. They adjust course and keep moving forward. Failure often isn't final. It's feedback. It's life's way of telling you, this way won't work, but another way might. And that's where adaptability shines. It turns failure into a data point. It takes the sting out of the loss and replaces it with a lesson. You begin to ask, what does this outcome tell me? What can I change? How can I improve? And in that process, you begin to evolve. You start seeing flexibility as a strength, not a compromise. Adaptable people have a quiet confidence. They don't need things to go perfectly to keep progressing. They're comfortable being uncomfortable. They're willing to start over, to rework the plan, to try again with a different strategy. And that mindset, being open to change instead of resisting it, creates resilience. It creates momentum because you're no longer stopped by setbacks. You're redirected by them. And that's a powerful shift. Adaptability also requires humility. You have to be willing to admit that your current way isn't working. That's not easy for everyone. Ego can get in the way. Pride says, I should already know how to do this. But humility says, if I'm willing to learn, I can figure this out. And that humility opens the door to growth. It allows you to take feedback, to try new things, and to continuously improve. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be willing. One of the most freeing truths you can embrace is that it's okay to change your approach. It doesn't mean you've failed. It means you've grown. It means you've learned something you didn't know before. Adaptability gives you permission to evolve. You're not the same person today that you were 6 months ago, and your strategy shouldn't be either. What worked in the past may not work in the present, and what works now might not work tomorrow. The world is dynamic, and if you want to succeed in a changing world, you must be willing to change with it. Think about nature, how trees bend with the wind instead of breaking, how animals migrate when seasons shift, how rivers find a way around the rocks. Nature adapts, and in doing so it survives, it thrives. The same principle applies to us. Rigidity leads to frustration and often stagnation, but flexibility, that leads to innovation, that leads to sustainability. You can either resist change and stay stuck, or you can embrace it and move forward. Adaptability doesn't mean you lower your standards. It means you stay committed to your goal while being creative about how you get there. It means you trust yourself to figure it out, even when the road ahead isn't clear, and that trust builds inner strength. The more adaptable you become, the more confident you become, not because everything goes right, but because you've proven to yourself that you can handle it when things go wrong. So when the unexpected happens, and it will take a breath, don't panic, don't shut down. Ask yourself, what's still possible here? What's another way forward? Because there's always another way. The dream is still alive. The opportunity still exists. It just might look different than you originally planned. And that's okay, because success doesn't belong to the most rigid. It belongs to the most adaptable. Those who are willing to pivot, learn and grow in the face of change are the ones who keep rising, always. Resilience is the muscle that allows you to keep going when everything in you wants to stop. It's the inner strength that rises when your plans fall apart, when your heart is heavy, and when your efforts haven't yet produced the results you hoped for. It's not about pretending that everything is okay. It's about deciding that even when it's not okay, you'll keep moving forward. Resilience doesn't eliminate difficulty. It just refuses to be defeated by it. It gives you the ability to endure, to stand back up, and to keep showing up with intention and purpose. Every person who's achieved something meaningful has had to become resilient. You don't build a business, a dream, or a meaningful life without facing disappointment, criticism, and delay. You don't grow stronger by avoiding hardship. You grow stronger by learning how to move through it. Resilience doesn't show up all at once. It's built in moments. Moments when you wanted to quit, but didn't. When you failed, but tried again. When you were discouraged but still gave your best. Every time you choose to keep going, even when it hurts, you're adding to your foundation. The truth is, life will test you, not to destroy you, but to develop you, to show you who you really are, to help you discover the power inside you that only shows up under pressure. You don't need resilience when everything is going well. You need it when it's not. You need it when the doors close, when the silence gets loud, when the answers don't come quickly. That's when resilience becomes your ally. It reminds you that storms don't last forever, and that setbacks are setups for strength. Resilient people have a unique mindset. They don't deny reality. They face it, but they don't stop at reality either. They choose to respond with faith, with creativity, and with determination. They accept what they cannot control, but they take full ownership of what they can. They don't waste time complaining. They invest time rebuilding, and every time life knocks them down, they rise with more wisdom, more depth, and more courage than before. They're not superhuman. They've just trained themselves not to give up. A resilient spirit understands that failure is not the end of the story. It's a painful one. Maybe, but not the final one. When you're resilient, you allow yourself to feel the loss, to acknowledge the disappointment, but you refuse to be defined by it. You give yourself permission to grieve, but not to stay stuck. And that balance is where healing and forward motion coexist. You honor what you've been through, but you don't let it hold you hostage. Resilience isn't about bouncing back to where you were. It's about bouncing forward into who you're becoming. You may not go back to the exact version of yourself you were before the challenge, but that's the point. You're evolving. You're being refined. You're discovering parts of your strength you didn't even know existed. And sometimes the pain you experience becomes the birthplace of your purpose. Sometimes the struggle becomes the reason you're able to lead, help, and inspire others down the road. Building resilience is not about being tough all the time. It's about being honest, being human, and being hopeful. It's about letting others support you when needed, and reminding yourself why you started in the first place. When you feel overwhelmed, return to your why. Why does this matter to you? Who are you becoming through this process? Those questions reconnect you to your vision and restore your strength. One of the greatest lessons resilience teaches is that you can do hard things. You can survive seasons that felt unbearable. You can climb out of valleys you once thought were permanent. You can keep your heart soft in a world that sometimes feels harsh. And every time you choose not to give up, even if your progress is slow, even if your energy is low, you're building something deep within you that no one can take away. There will be times when progress feels invisible, when your efforts feel unnoticed, and when it seems like nothing is changing. But resilience is what carries you through those seasons. It reminds you that just because it's hard doesn't mean it's not worth it. Just because it's slow doesn't mean it's not working. And just because you feel tired doesn't mean you're finished. Keep going, even if you have to crawl. Even if it's one step at a time, because every step you take with resilience is a step closer to the person you're meant to become. And one day you'll look back and realize the strength you gained in the struggle became the foundation for everything you've built. Failure, when embraced with the right mindset, can become the foundation of a powerful testimony. It's one thing to talk about success, to share your achievements, and to inspire others with your victories. But the stories that truly connect, that truly change lives, are the ones rooted in adversity. People don't just want to hear about how you made it. They want to know what you went through to get there. They want to know about the nights you doubted yourself, the losses that shook you, the moments when you thought about giving up. That's what makes your journey relatable, authentic, and transformational. The truth is, your struggles aren't just meant for you. They shape you, yes, but they also position you to impact others. When you overcome failure and rise again, you gain credibility, not because you did everything perfectly, but because you didn't quit. You've lived through the valley, you've wrestled with the weight of disappointment, and now when you speak, You speak from experience. You're not sharing theory. You're sharing life. And that kind of testimony carries a weight that books, lectures, and theories simply can't match. Everyone loves a comeback story. There's something deeply human about hearing that someone has walked through fire and come out stronger. It gives people hope that they too can make it. Your pain becomes a platform. Your failure becomes a message. The scars you once tried to hide become symbols of strength, showing others what's possible when they refuse to be defined by their lowest moments. This is why it's so important not to bury your failures out of shame or regret. Instead, process them, grow through them, and then share them, not from a place of woundedness, but from a place of wisdom. You don't have to wait until everything is perfect to share your story. In fact, some of the most powerful testimonies are spoken while the speaker is still healing, still learning, still evolving. That honesty resonates. People connect with realness far more than they connect with perfection. So don't underestimate the value of your journey simply because you're not at the finish line yet. Your testimony is being written in real time, and someone needs to hear the chapter you're in right now. One of the greatest honors in life is to take what once hurt you and use it to heal someone else, to take what once broke you and use it to build up another. That's the redemption of failure. It doesn't just make you wiser, it makes you useful. It equips you to lead, to mentor, to guide others through their own struggles. You've walked the road, you've learned the lessons. Now you're in a position to light the path for someone else. And in doing so, your life takes on a deeper sense of meaning and purpose. Your testimony also keeps you grounded. It reminds you of how far you've come. In the rush of life, it's easy to forget your past victories, especially when new challenges arise. But when you reflect on where you started, what you overcame, and who you've become along the way, it renews your confidence. It strengthens your gratitude. It gives you perspective, and that perspective allows you to face future obstacles with a greater sense of resilience and calm. Some people think their story isn't worth sharing because it doesn't look dramatic or glamorous, but comparison is the thief of impact. You don't have to have a movie-worthy story for your journey to matter. If you've grown, if you've changed, if you've endured something and come out the other side better than you were, that's enough. That's powerful. That's worthy, because you never know who's listening. You never know who needs to hear exactly what you've been through so they can believe in what's possible for themselves. There's no such thing as a wasted failure when you choose to use it for good. There's no pain that can't be turned into purpose. And the more honest you are about your journey, the more lives you'll touch. People don't need you to have all the answers. They just need to know they're not alone. And your testimony might be the lifeline that helps them hold on a little longer, try one more time, or believe in themselves again. So speak up, share what you've been through, not for attention, but for impact, not for sympathy, but for significance. Because in the end, your story is not just about you, it's about everyone your story will reach, encourage, and transform. Let your failure become your message. Let your scars become your strength, and let your journey be a light for someone else's darkness.